Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ARC's weekly fireside chat. My name is Sam Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, and today we'll be talking about housing and the importance of housing in post-incarceration and COVID. That's something that's a reality to us right now today. And so today I'd like to introduce three amazing human beings that work within ARC's housing program: Michael Hawk, Lili Herrera, and Oscar Bonilla. But first, I'd like them to introduce themselves. So, Michael, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing today and what does your work at ARC's housing look like?
My name is Michael Hawk. Today I'm at our new site for our THP, which is Transitional Housing Program. We're setting things up for everybody. And my job through ARC is the program coordinator of this site and being just here to help people and guide them through all their needs.
All right, thank you, Mike, and welcome to the show. Mike has been around for a while. As you can see, he's also a Los Angeles Rams fan. Lili, could you introduce yourself? How are you doing today? And could you tell us what does your work look like at ARC Housing right now?
Sure. Hello. My name is Lili Herrera. I am the Associate Director of Housing. I pretty much I assist John McClellan, who is a Housing Director. I am responsible of overseeing daily operations at Bromont Housing, which is located in Silmar. And as Mike mentioned, we are in the middle of relocating to the East LA, Boyle Heights area. So it's kind of a mess here. As Mike is over there, I'm here on site, and there's boxes everywhere, and there's a lot going on, but definitely daily operations, helping Mike oversee the program and also assist with the daily tasks that we have here.
Thank you so much, Lili, and welcome to the show. And Oscar, welcome. Could you introduce yourself? How are you doing today? Could you introduce yourself, and could you tell us how long have you been at ARC Housing?
Hey, my name's Oscar. Oscar Bonilla. I'm a ARC office intern. I've been in Bromont since September 20th, and yeah, I like it. They treat you like family. They're very awesome, and yeah, today I'm feeling great. I love being here at the office with everybody here. But yeah.
Let me ask you, let me kind of stick with you for a minute, Oscar. How long have you been home? When did you come home? Which will tell us, of course, how long you've been home. And what does that transition look like with your experience specifically with ARC? I just wanted to share that for a minute because you have a little bit of a unique experience right now.
Well, so I did 14 years. I started off as a juvenile. I was 16 when I was incarcerated. I started off at Silmar, went to YA, and eventually went to prison. After that, I went to the MCRP program. So once I went to the MCRP program, it's like they let you go to work and back. So I started working for ARC about a year ago in February. So it was nice. It was before the COVID happened. It was bustling over here. Now it's kind of like a ghost town, but it's still cool. And we still work and we still get things done over here at the office. But the transition from MCRP to to ARC housing in Bromont, it was pretty smooth. I loved it. It was crazy because my mother lived on the next block, so it was kind of perfect for me. I got to see her every day, and yeah, I think it's better than most transitional housings because most transitional housings are kind of overbearing. Over here, it's not that much overbearing. And they, as I said before, they they pull you in as family, and they're very nurturing. So to me, that goes a long way in your rehabilitation.
Mm.
It seems that we might have went off air for a minute there. So Oscar, we probably missed the last comments of what you said, but let's move forward. So for ARC, it's been really an important part of our programming for people that are returning to our community to have safe, stable, and dignified housing. What are some of the important aspects of housing program that support people coming home? Mike and Lili, and then Mike, could you share with us what are some of those important components?
Some of the components that we have that housing, particularly, so we have, just to give you a little background, we have 2 housing sites. We have one in Koreatown, which houses mostly our younger population, which are folks coming from DJJ. That particular housing site, we have 24 beds available. And again, it's mostly occupied by young men who are coming home after being incarcerated through mostly the Department of Juvenile Justice. So that's in Koreatown. We have the other one in somewhere that will recently be moving to East LA. We have a total of 40 beds available, 37 which are funded by a partnership that we have with CDCR DRP that allows us to work specifically with ex-lifers coming home. And so we currently have a total of 27 beds that are occupied. Some of the components are pretty much looking at identifying individual service plans for everyone that comes into our housing programs. Some of those things include individual service plans that include really looking at helping people to come home. A lot of times folks come home with starting from scratch. They have no documentation available. So it is critical that once a life coach is identified, a case manager is identified to work in partnership with our housing member, that they are assisted in getting all of the documentation in place, such as EBT, Social Security, California ID. I mean, those are critical documents that are needed to move forward into reentry back into community. So there's definitely different components, but it's on a case by case and specifically looking at and paying attention to the needs of the individuals that come to our housing. It is not, we don't have like a one approach where we implement it on everybody. Everybody's needs are individual and they're very specific.
Thank you so much, Lili. So there was I just want to share with our audience, there was a question, basically this only for incarcerated individuals from Clara. So yes, Clara, ARC housing is specific to people that are formerly incarcerated. So that's literally for individuals that are coming out of whether it's juvenile halls, camps, the Department of Juvenile Justice, or CDCR, or even the county jail, depending on if they meet the criteria to be part of housing. So specific to your question, and more important is yes, ARC housing is for formerly incarcerated people. Mike, you want to share share a little about yourself, and then also kind of follow up with what Lili said. Like, what are the important aspects of housing for people, housing supports for people that are returning to our communities?
Okay. I'm a former lifer myself. I did 26 years for first-degree murder, and I paroled in 2016, in June 2016, and I was kind of caught up in the reentry program phase of that, where you were required to do 6 months at like a controlled environment. And it was very difficult for me to kind of like get myself started, get my feet on the ground, which is something that a lot of programs don't really afford individuals coming home after a long period of incarceration, which we do at ARC. It's much more different. It's all about them and getting them started, because it's all about transitioning in society for us and to be productive citizens. And that's not like the key thing for a lot of the programs when people coming out. It's kind of like it's a money thing. We now have a contract so that we can afford to put people up, as many people as we can, for our program. It's enabled a lot of people who can come directly to our program from prison, which Lili was referring to, about having the documentation things that we need to get with them about, and trying to work a program for them, because I know for me, what worked for me didn't work for anybody else. So we have to individualize every single person coming to us, whether it be in our program. We also have women in our program. So it's kind of on both sides of that we're working. And yeah, I mean, and I know it seems weird, but we had an inspector, a safety inspector, come through after we ended up in our contract. So it was like mandatory. We had safety inspections, and she had made a comment to me one time. I was talking to one of our members there in housing, and she was so like happy to hear the kind of conversation that we had in between each other. And it's not what she expects or hears in other programs. And she had just wanted to make that comment to us that like, this is very family oriented, like very, like you guys really do work with each other and understand and have respect for one another.
All right, thank you, Mike. And I think it's important, one, that like there are a number of our organizations that do great work in reentry and housing. What we do here at ARC is literally like for instance, Mike, after doing 26 years, we listen to our members and our staff that are directly impacted from incarceration in order for us to know what our members need and how to support them in a way that's empowering and does not stop them from transitioning out of incarceration and living the best lives or becoming the best version of themselves as they transition out of incarceration. And as we talk about transitional housing, Lili and Mike, could you tell me each, what is transitional housing? Can you kind of explain that so everybody understands? Because some viewers understand it and some don't.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll jump in on it. Transitional housing is kind of like a gateway from, it's not necessarily right from prison to living independently, but transitional housing is kind of like a gateway where people can kind of get everything that they need going. Again, going back to documentation, starting your work, working on credit, working on all the things that you're going to need, which we refer to as our exit program. And really your exit program is working on everything that you need in order to be independent and be able to succeed on parole and as, you know, as human beings.
Lili, what does transitional housing mean from your perspective?
Well, we're definitely not a, you know, kind of a reentry program. We do not have blackout periods. That is something that we have never really practiced. So it is really, as Mike said, it's kind of, it's a bridge that, you know, that we are, like Mike said, sometimes people come after completing the 6 months mandatory reentry programs to our housing. Our housing is mostly a bridge between that to really helping them get on their feet, really provide them not only with housing, but we really want to address a lot of trauma that has a lot of unpacked trauma that has never been addressed. And we definitely not only connect them to resources, but we also make it very intentional that they at least complete 30 days of counseling just for them to really address some of those things that get in the way of a successful transition back to the community, back to their families, back to permanent housing. So it's definitely bridging that gap, but also providing them with that opportunity. Our program, our specifically our program with the transitional housing program is from 6 months to 12 months. And so there's different things that are required for them to really focus on their exit plan. One of the things that is really important is for them to really look at full-time employment so that they could contribute it to a savings fund that is offered through our program. By the time that they leave, they take that savings with them. 100% of that, they take it with them to help them with housing needs, for, deposits, whatever that may be. So definitely, I look at our housing program, again, more of a bridge for them to hopefully successfully go on after our program into whatever they decide that is best for them, whether they're going back to family or on their own, but securing definitely permanent housing.
So I want to stick with you for 1 minute, Lili. So how much does this cost? Because you mentioned savings, so I'm working. How much do I have to pay to stay in your housing?
Nothing at all. Like I said, we ask that at least 50% of their monthly income comes to their own savings, and there's no cost for nothing. Utilities, everything is paid. The only thing is we do not provide 3 meals a day like some programs do. Again, that is part of a skill set of skill building. It is to learn how to cook on your own, to really be independent. In our program, we always look at it as more of an independent living opportunity to really prepare people to go out on their own. So there's no cost whatsoever. The savings, as I mentioned, 100% of that savings leaves with them at the end of completing the program.
Thank you, Lili. So just to be clear, make sure that I understand. Basically, I start working and I give you half of my paycheck and you just bank it for me. And then when I leave, I get all of that back?
Absolutely. As the guys here and the ladies, by the way, I forgot to mention, we do have beds available for women coming home as well. Our priority is women that are coming home after, long periods of incarceration, because that is one of the biggest stressors for them once they're going, to board. And so we definitely do have housing for women as well. So no, to answer your question, Sam, as the guys and the ladies here, pretty much you are stacking, and you are going to walk away with those stacks at the end of your stay here.
So it costs you nothing but your commitment to focus on your reentry, follow the rules, and not go back. So I think that's really important for people to understand, that it doesn't cost you anything but your commitment to, one, never go back to jail or prison, and find your pathway to be the best version of yourself. I have a question for Mike and Oscar. Oscar, you first. Well, you kind of touched on it, but I still want to go back to it. For you, what does transitional housing, how does transitional housing fit into your story or your experience as you're transitioning out almost a year now? And then, Mike, I want to give you that same question.
I'll say what it is for me is stability. Not everybody's household is perfect. A lot of people have trauma at their household, so it's transitional housing keeps you away from that. So let's just say you have something going wrong with your family, and you go. That's the only place you could go to. It's you're gonna get back into that, and you're gonna be basically, you might have triggers, and these triggers might get triggered. So to me, I like transitional housing. It keeps me stable. Like Lili said, I'm stacking, so that's sweet. Also, you get to learn how to cook or whatever, live on your own pretty much. They teach you how to live on your own, kind of, and that's what I like. And not only that, it's just good community support at Bromont, and I like that as well. Not too many places are gonna be like that. I mean, there's a lot of people that are I would say there's a lot of people that are may be strange to you or like different. You might not know them, they're strangers. And over here it's like you're pretty much cool with everybody, and I like that. So to me, transitional housing is stability. I'm over here stacking, I'm working, and I get to they give you a lot of autonomy, and you just learn a lot here. So I love it.
Thank you, Oscar. Mike, for you, how did transitional housing translate into your vision? How long have you been home now, and what was your how does that translate for you? Because in some instances, some of these videos may end up inside CDCR, where people can talk about transitional housing also.
Well, for me, I've been out now 4.5 years. I'm still on parole. I went through a 6-month reentry program that was ordered by the PBH. I'm now also out of county. So my county parole was changed to facilitate the reentry program that I was going to be going into. At the end of that, I didn't want to go back to the county. I didn't want to go back to that area in which I grew up in. And ARC Housing at Magnolia actually afforded me an opportunity to be a mentor to some of the DJJ youth. So I was able to get into that program for housing and to help facilitate their entry into as well. So it kind of worked for me because it helped me, it helped them. And obviously I was able to get back to ARC in the process by helping along as much as I could, being older, a little more settled. But I think what it did is it enabled me to really understand what I wanted to do with my life. And ARC, having that housing program and having that ability to kind of go to school and do the things that I was doing at that time kind of made me not rush out there and do something that I probably would be stuck in now. And so I was very grateful for the housing program. I was constantly harassing the housing coordinator, the housing director, John McClellan, all the time about it. And it worked out for me. And, I was able to get a job working for ARC as a resident advisor, and then worked up into housing life coach position, and eventually recently into the program coordinator's position, where I can continue to help people who are coming home with the same needs for housing that I needed back then when I first came in.
Nice. Thank you so much, Michael Hawk. Lili, I want to learn a little bit more about you. I'd like to know, how did you get in your work? I'd like for our audience to get to know you. You've been here for some time, working at ARC, doing an incredible job over housing. How did you get into this line of work?
Interestingly, I actually spent almost 20 years working with victims of violence, specifically victims of domestic violence, relationship violence, rape, and child abuse. So I spend most of my time going through extensive trainings and really working with the aftermath of violence. And so I used to be the director of our violence prevention division that works specifically around education awareness of the impact of violence. And during that time, I actually started working with youth. I want to say in 2000, I started going into the juvenile halls, specifically Eastlake. And then we got a contract that extended our services to all 3 juvenile halls. And then we started going into some of the camps as well. And then my son actually was, he was looking at 20 years in 2000, I want to say 13. And so he ended up getting a reduced sentence, but I started really looking into people who were incarcerated, really looking at finding answers and how do we help people that won't need those second chances. So I started looking at ARC, and eventually I left my former employer and applied, and John answered my call, and I've been here since then. My son is now home, and so it became personal to really look at the other side. I know what violence does to people and the aftermath of that, but I also wanted to look at people who are looking for second chances and really are looking to have those opportunities and resources that will help them really understand their personal trauma that maybe led them to commit some of those things that, you know, that led them to incarceration. So here I am.
And we're grateful to have you with us. Thank you so much, Lili.
Yeah.
Wanted to ask another question. This is for Mike and Lili. So first, let me back up. Also for Mike and Lili, because there's some questions in the chat box. People want to know, well, how do I get in that housing program? And so could you share the steps that a person would need to take in order to actually get in the ARC's housing program? Lili and then Mike.
Sure. So most of our referrals come directly from the institutions, whether it's DJJ or specifically to folks coming to our, so just again, a little more information. So our Magnolia House, it's mostly people who are on probation, supervision. And so again, those referrals often come from the institution, from DJJ institutions, or directly from other resources, such as the public defenders, or sometimes it's word of mouth, or it's directly coming from our folks inside, the life coaches that go inside, or teams that go inside of the institutions to provide services in there. So that's one entry point. The other one specifically for folks coming home and that are going to be under parole supervision, usually at this point through our grant, we actually get those referrals specifically from, again, different institutions for folks that are getting ready to discharge. I'm sorry, to discharge from prison, coming home. And so definitely we can provide more information on our website, or we can actually put, I don't know if we were able to put our contact information, but I know that Oscar also receives a lot of letters from folks inside asking for letters of support, and we could also provide that, just giving us more information, and also directly connecting with us here, the housing team. Mike is actually going to be doing most of those intakes now, and the process pretty much is looking at how they have been involved with ARC inside the institutions. You know, how did they hear about us? You know, what are their housing needs? It really depends on, again, their needs coming home. But for the most part, as we continue to expand this program and move forward, we are getting a lot of referrals directly from the reentry coordinators inside of the institutions.
Thank you, Lili. So just to capture, so we get a lot of referrals from the reentry coordinators inside the institutions. However, and this is for family members that are listening, your family member can write to us from inside the institution and ask if they can come to our housing. And so literally you can write, our staff will put our mailing address on the screen as we close out the show, or you can call our number, which Oscar will sometimes answer. And if you notice in some of the comments, people are talking about communicating with you, Oscar, and how pleasant you've been, and thanking you for the help that you've given. So your family members can write to our office, or you can call and ask for that information as far as the address. I think the best way, in my opinion, is for the person that's currently incarcerated to write and ask for assistance with housing, because then you're communicating directly with the organization. And as you know, if you've read our mission statement, our job is to empower formerly and currently incarcerated people by providing resources to them. Housing is a resource. So empower your loved one by asking them if they're interested in housing to write to us. I'd like to ask, what makes ARC's housing unique? Let's start with Oscar, then Lili, and then Mike. So what makes ARC housing unique to you, Oscar?
I would say they give you more autonomy. You're able to do things on your own a lot. And some people need that. They really need that. They need to learn on their own sometimes, but it's not all the time, because yeah, they guide us for like certain resources that we need. Of course, that's very important. But yeah, there's a lot of times where we gotta learn a lot of things on our own as well. So I love that, and the fact that we don't have a blackout period. The blackout period, it keeps you from your family, and I'm sure there's many families out there that want to see their loved one, and yeah, we're grown. We know what to do. We know what is asked of us, and yeah, I love that. And the unique thing is, this is a special program. Not everybody could come to it. It's just mainly ARC members. But the thing is, they take good care of you, and for sure you'll love it. Yeah.
Thank you. Lili, what makes ARC's housing unique?
It's actually really unique. We're very much invested in community building. Our founder, Scott Budnick, always made it a point to remind folks that building community it's not only about, breaking bread together, but also what do we do for each other in regards to, lifting each other and our efforts to work as a team. So I think that the most unique thing about our housing is we definitely are invested in seeing a successful transition into community, and really invested in helping folks with as many resources as possible. And again, looking at it from a lens of, being trauma informed and doing a lot of work from that lens, and looking at folks for not looking at, their past, but really looking toward their future and preparing folks for that. And so we don't necessarily, we don't have any type of programs that may seem punitive. It's more about a partnership. I always, have conversations with housing staff about following up, but following through. And that's not just to say on the participant or the members end, but also our end, holding us accountable to really be in partnership with them.
Thank you, Lili. Mike, two parts to this. So one, what makes ARC's housing unique, but could you also explain to us what is a blackout period? Because we've heard that a few times. Could you explain to our audience what a blackout period is and why we don't have one at ARC?
Housing to me, what did I think housing is to me? It's like, the funny thing about when I got out of my reentry program and went into ARC housing, I thought like the rules were like the big deal there, right? So I didn't want to be subject to their rules, their curfews, and just to be clear, we have curfews in housing. But even though, like Oscar says, you're free to like do your things that you need to do in order to get yourself going. Like you don't that's not what we're here for. So it's really what it meant to me is the opportunity. It really gave me the opportunity and the feeling that I'm able to do what I need to do for me. And that's how I felt when I was in Magnolia and moving forward with ARC, and that's why I wanted to be part of the team. For a blackout period normally is known for when you come out of the system or into another program. They do a blackout period because the first thing that they want to do is they want to kind of like distance you from all the bad and negative things that are probably going on with you at that point. People go into different programs for different reasons, whether they just need housing, they're having problems with family, they have addiction issues. And ARC doesn't do that because we honestly, and this is really, we're not set up to serve every person that's coming into our housing program. So somebody who has addiction issues, we're not set up for that. So we would help them refer them to another spot, which is probably definitely going to have a blackout period for them. And mostly blackout periods are not anything other than just keeping a 30-day or a short period of tab on the new person so that most people are more subject to negativities in their lives once they're out real early in their, they're settling into society. So we don't have a blackout period. I mean, I don't know how else to say it in a nice way, but we do have times where we ask them not to go anywhere for a second, because for just our purposes in housing, we need them for a week or two just to get everything going. And asking them not to kind of like run around, like that weekend is theirs, they can spend it with their families, stuff like that. but generally, like, we still want to keep them around as well. So no blackout period, but there's times that we still need people to stick with us.
And so I like to kind of expound on that. Like to kind of expound when Mike says, because I've been involved in listening and always asking our housing staff different questions. So when Mike says we might need you and not run around, meaning you come home, you need an ID. In order for us to help you get your ID, your social security card, and all that documentation, we need you to be there so we can provide the transportation, take you to your appointments to get you where, one, if by chance you are away from housing, you're stopped by law enforcement, you do have that ID. So a lot of times when we ask you not to go anywhere, it's only because we're trying to make sure you have all the proper identification and documentation that you need. The other unique thing about housing that I've seen, where we've had young people come home, their family comes directly to housing and we'll hang out with them for a little while. So that's what we mean by no blackout period. Yeah, your family can come in. Now, right now, because of COVID, we have certain restrictions in place, but that's generally the way it operates. A person's family can come and hang out with them that day, take them to lunch or dinner, and bring them back to housing so that we know that that person is safe. Everything we're doing is to make sure that we empower the individual and make sure that they're safe. There was a question on the screen in regards to a person comes home and doesn't have anything, has no money, no family, anything. How do they feed themselves, Lily? And they came into our housing.
We take care of all of that. We have welcome home packages that include everything. We take them shopping. We take them shopping, not only for clothing, excuse me, hygiene, anything that they need, shoes, but we also provide them with groceries. As I mentioned earlier, we do not provide 3 meals a day. Everybody cooks on their own. The setup right now here at Bromont in Silmar is pretty much apartment units, and they have their own kitchen where they cook meals, and sometimes they share meals together. So anybody that comes straight from an institution, and we have had so many people come in with nothing other than sometimes they come in sandals, socks and sandals, and so we definitely take them shopping. That's the first thing that we do, and again, we provide everything for them. Until that's why it is critical, those 30 days, for us to begin working with them as soon as they get here, so that we provide stability in getting them food stamps, getting them everything that they need, all of the proper documentation, so that that we can move forward with employment. But pretty much we have welcome home packages that include everything.
Thank you, Lily. Thank you so much. And while we're talking about it, because we are in the middle of a pandemic, and so as other housing sites and other aggregate living facilities have had COVID outbreaks, what has been our experience in housing, and what were the safety measures and the actions that we took should a person, or when a person tested positive for COVID in both of our sites? Lily, could you share what actions we took and what have been the results?
Absolutely. Excuse me. So for in March, when everybody, the whole state went on lockdown, we had conversations with all of our membership at both sites, explaining to them what was happening. There was definitely a lot of fear and a lot of, and again, the fear came from the unknown. We didn't have a lot of facts. Everything was moving so fast, but all we knew was that all movement was supposed to take place immediately. And so we answered questions, and we were, we were reassuring people that we would get through it together. So we did an amazing job as a team to really keep us safe as possible for many, many months, with no positives tests and no outbreaks. Unfortunately, once the second wave hit, both houses got hit with outbreaks. Outbreaks is pretty much 2 or more people who test positive in these type of settings, and so housing settings or shelter, whatnot. Both houses were hit with outbreaks, and so pretty much what that looks like is we quarantine people. Department of Public Health provides off-site isolation in a hotel in Pomona. So a couple of our members were moved to be isolated off-site, but for the most part, we definitely did prepare in identifying rooms. And actually here at Silmar, we actually identified a unit where we would, house people who tested positive for them to isolate. The Koreatown site actually had a quarantine. The setting is different. They had a quarantine. Everybody had to stay in. There, no movement. Everybody had to let their employers know. And so definitely it has been a team effort, tapping into other teams throughout our organization, throughout ARC, helping them coming and helping both of our sites. Our members have been amazing and really holding each other up, but helping and really understanding that this is beyond our control, and we're just following the guidelines, not only from the state, but from our county in regards to quarantine and isolation. And so it is definitely a process. We have to report these cases not only locally, but we also have to report these cases specifically through our CDCR contract. We have to track all of this information, and then we have to follow all of their guidelines. And once everyone is clear, then they clear us, from an outbreak, because it is official. It is actually an official call that Department of Public Health makes, and we have to follow all of those guidelines until we're clear. So again, it's just been an amazing response from everyone on the ground, but also from leadership and other teams throughout all of ARC.
Thank you, Lili. And just so the audience is clear, through our county, through the county, testing is done, I believe, every 2 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Lili. Testing for COVID is done every 2 weeks for all of our housing members. Every day we take temperatures, we verify, and we make sure that everybody is safe from temperature checking. We make sure that PPEs are available, hand sanitizer, gloves, cleaning equipment, and we make sure that all new updates are made available to all our members. But the testing, I think, is one of the most important things when COVID first hit, being able to make sure that our members were healthy and safe. And so want to ask also, who are some of our partners? We want to definitely shout out our partners. Could you tell us who are some of our partners in this housing space, Lili?
Partners. So one of our biggest partners that provides counseling for us, outside counseling, they contract with us. Well, they're in partnership is the West Valley Counseling Center out here in Silmar, that actually has been able to also come out and cover, provide groups and counseling to our Koreatown site. We definitely have a great partnership with all of the DJJs, with CDCR. We have DHS. Let's see, there's a lot of people who are involved, but directly we have, believe it or not, we do definitely have a good relationship with DAPO, which is the offices that where the parole agents are housed, and we have a great relationship with parole agents out here in the Van Nuys area, and also with probation out for our Koreatown sites. And so there's a lot of players, and there's definitely a lot of partnerships. We have a lot of resources through those partnerships. Also, not only providing counseling, but we also have partnerships out here with agencies that actually provide employment resources, and they provide resume writings. And so this is all obviously has come to, kind of a halt right now because of COVID, but definitely there's a lot of players that definitely make our work a lot easier for us.
Thank you, Lili. Thank you.
Mike, did I forget anybody?
No, you did good. That's good.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. A question for you, Mike. What have been with the COVID-19 pandemic? What would you say or have been the greatest challenges you faced in housing with this pandemic?
Well, personally, I came down with COVID on the beginning of December. So did one of our other life coaches. So it was very difficult for our housing employees to really, I mean, you were there, Sam, so you helped out as well in housing. And we also had an outbreak at our housing program at that same time. So dealing with it hasn't been as difficult. Dealing with the people who are positive with COVID, it's dealing with a lot of the guys and the girls who are negative, because they have a feeling like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're being safe and healthy. Like, if there's restrictions put on everybody, why is it me? I'm not doing that. But we've been able to sit down with everybody and keep in contact with them even when I wasn't on site. And I personally feel privileged that a lot of, if not all of our members there in housing were they were very engaging, and they accepted what we were saying to them, like to help us out in a lot of ways where we were really short in doing it for them.
Thank you, Mike. I also want to shout out some of our other partners in housing. Susan Burton's A New Way of Life for Women's Housing, and one of our great partners. And we partner both in housing and programming, different things. Definitely want to shout them out. Amity Foundation, a great, amazing organization we work with. Another one of our partners in this work. Beacon House, another amazing program. So there are a number of other organizations that we partner with housing, because ARC can't do this alone. This is a huge task. We're unique in different ways, but there are other housing providers that we partner with that do amazing work in this space. So I don't want to make it seem as though we're saying we're the only game in town. We have amazing partners that we're grateful and thankful for. And this is how we build community and how we make sure that public safety is safe, because we make sure as people transition out of incarceration, all of those resources necessary for them to succeed and never go back are provided by all of these amazing organizations. So if you thought ARC was just a policy organization, you see it's a bit more to us. And we will be highlighting different areas of our organization and the work that we do for people that are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, and empowering them as they transition out. Mike and Lili, I want real quick, what would you say, give me a couple of great triumphs that you've experienced since the pandemic hit?
Mike?
I'm sorry, I was trying to type. I was on the private chat trying to see if we can, for our existing members who need housing still, to contact their life coaches downtown for that process, because we're not always able to help them with that because we don't know who they are, in honesty. So I'm sorry, Sam, could you repeat that question, sir?
So my question would be, what would you say, give me one or two great victories or triumphs since COVID hit that you've experienced in housing?
Geez, since COVID hit, to the victory. Well, to be honest with you, it's kind of shown a lot of our participants, a lot of our members in housing are willing to work with us when times become a little trying for them, and asking them to do the things that we're asking when it comes to either quarantine or isolation. They've shown a lot of resourcefulness in themselves, and I mean, it's nothing that I'm doing, it's them. But I see that, and I kind of internally, I take it as a little bit of okay, I helped them with that. I taught them that stuff, right? So I live vicariously through their achievements, and so that's it, really. I mean, I'm just there to help.
Right. Thank you, Mike. So for me, so I'm not in housing every day, but for me, for instance, I talked to a young lady that was in Bromont housing, and she shared how all of the life coaches, and she specifically mentioned Mike and Donnie at one point, they really get and understand me because I did a life sentence. And she said they helped me understand certain things and got me to where I'm at now. So I see those as victories. Because oftentimes coming out of incarceration, we're coming out of a system that initially was built to crush us. And then coming out with hope, and then having a hand to hold to walk you through this transition period, and then for you to be out on your own. And by the way, this young lady is out on her own, and that's what I mean by victory. She did a life sentence, came home, came into her housing, and now she's out on her own, living her life. And so I see those as victories when those things have happened consistently with our housing during the middle of a pandemic, helping people get their I-9 documents, find employment, plug into therapy, because most of us that have been incarcerated have gone through some type of trauma. And so we need that therapy, and then making our way to just being the best version of ourselves as we transition from the belly of the beast, as some people call it.
Sam, if I could add, I'm sorry, if I could add, one of the other things is also the biggest strength for me was literally watch our program and not take a break. Everything shut down. Our program didn't, just like as many other housing programs. But our program definitely continued to operate as normal as possible. One of the, it came to mind, during this pandemic, we were actually still able to place people to continue to their journeys and being successful. One person comes to mind, which is, he came to us literally, I think maybe a few weeks before this whole pandemic and shutdown. And he was here and everything seemed, not to be going his way. And he had come home after serving 10 years. And in June, he was actually accepted to our Ventura Training Center to start his training to become a firefighter with CAL FIRE. So again, looking at those things as, as also definitely blessings, but also looking at the resilience of our members. And literally and staff and together as a team continue to operate as normal as we possibly can in helping each other through the whole process. But one of the things that I'm most grateful for is how understanding the members are when we provide them guidelines and guidelines that we need to follow. And they're very understanding. It just speaks to the trust that they have in our housing program, in our staff, and definitely in each other. So that just came to mind for me. So
thank you, Lili. Thank you so much. And for any of our members or their family members that are watching our show right now, if you're in need of housing, you should contact your life coach at the downtown Los Angeles office, and that life coach will put you in connection with either Mike or Lili, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of. So always remember, your life coach is also your mentor and your coach to guide you through this transition period. We're coming up on time, so before we run out of time, I want to give each one of our amazing guests, amazing human beings that do this work that's so important to our communities, a moment to share their last thoughts with the guests that are here. So Oscar, would you please last thoughts for our audience?
I would say transitional housing is important. It means stability to me. It helps me get on my feet, and I appreciate ARC for giving me that opportunity to get their housing. I can't thank them enough. If you have family members that are incarcerated, I implore you to ask them to seek transitional housing, because it's important and it's gonna really help them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Oscar. Thank you for joining us. Lili, last thoughts for our audience. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Definitely, it gives. I hope that this forum gave more information about our housing program. We definitely recognize the need for it, and so we are definitely ready to provide those resources. And definitely, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. Mike will be the point person for the Somar, Lorena, East LA area, and Sophia is the main contact for our Koreatown site. And then overall, Mike McClellan, who is a director, and Oscar does a wonderful job in passing information along to us. So please reach out if you have any more questions. We're definitely here to help.
Thank you so much, Lili. Thank you for joining us. Michael Hawk, could you please share your last thoughts before we close out? And again, brother, thank you for joining us, and love that LA Rams hat.
Thank you about that Rams. I just want to say, I can only speak for me. I needed housing when I got out, and I didn't know how I was going to get it. And an organization like ARC, who had the openings and the opportunities for me to grow and to learn and to understand what I need to do to be a productive member of society. I mean, I can't say much more about it than that. And that's why I work in the program. Like, it's like anything else. If you believe in it enough, it'll work for you. And including coming with us as a member, like if you believe in your adjustment, your reentry into this world that we're not accustomed to, then, housing, transitional housing is a good place. And like Sam said, we're not the only game in town. We just run a different game in ARC. That's all it's doing. So.
Hey, thank you so much, Mike. So thank you again. Thank you, Lili. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, Michael. Greatly appreciate you joining us. And thank you for the heart that you put into your work that I see every single day and helping people come home from incarceration and transition into back into our communities. Would like for our viewers to know that next week we will be talking to an organization and doctors from Amend and in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine. We want to be transparent about the rollout, some of the side effects that we have been hearing about, but also the importance. And I want to just share with you yesterday with my sisters, we took my 82-year-old mother who is really, really ill to have her vaccine. She's doing well. She's 82 and she's very ill. She's at home resting, but I want my mom to live forever. I know that's not realistic, but she's probably my staunchest supporter in my life work, even while I was incarcerated. But next week, we will be talking about the COVID vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, and we will have some experts on the show here for your questions. So please tune in, share with others. We'll be posting this probably immediately after the show. Again, I want to thank Lili, Michael, and Oscar for joining us. And for our audience, please take care, stay safe, and continue to care for one another.